Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you today to this interview with Lewis Herms. I wanted to read a little bio about him so you know just who he is and what he does. Lewis Herms is a patriot filmmaker and truther. His platform is Screw Big Government. You got to love that. Lewis has been unmasking the Marxist global agenda for 3 decades. In 2021 alone, he had over 1 million views of his films and his viral Watch the Water video. It's been banned several times by the tech tyrants, but still copied and re-uploaded by several patriots. Lewis prides himself in exposing the deep state without the addition of hopium or fear porn. What you see is what you get with this guy as he shoots it straight. And that is the main reason I had you on today. Thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
So I have to ask you, what do you mean, first of all, the deep state? So let's clear that one out.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So let's go with the basics.
Okay.
So the deep state would be members within government, media. It could be literally in medical and corporations that do not have the best interests of the people in mind. So a lot of people think deep state's just in the United States. It's global. In fact, what it really is, it's a globalist Marxist agenda run by the elite. And they're the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Some of them, we don't even know their names.
Right.
And their objective is to treat us, well, they've actually they call us cattle, right? So their objective is to treat we the people as in their enslavement to forward their Marxist agenda. And ultimately, and it sounds crazy, they want to depopulation the earth. They'd like to get it down to about 500 million people total from 7 billion where we are now.
So they've ordained themselves God, is that correct?
Yeah, and it's interesting you would say that, because if to go deeper, is there's really the background is a Freemasonic background. So they consider themselves Freemasons. Now, the Freemasons in general aren't bad. A lot of people say, oh, Freemasons, they're just all horrible Satanists. And they're really not. Most of them on the lower levels don't even know about the indoctrination they're going through. So the number 1 and number 2 level, it's fairly benign. Number 3, then they do go through a ritualistic ceremony where they have to push away their God. Sometimes they don't even know that they're doing that. They think they're just part of the brotherhood. Then they go up the ladder. And then when you get to the 33rd degree Masons, this is huge, because even generals of our military, generals and admirals, are asked to go to the 33rd. But if they do not take Satan into themselves, they are left at the 32nd level, right? But they still have taken oaths where they can't tell on each other, and they're threatened to be killed. And it sounds crazy and wacky and like some movie, but I call the normies are the people that just don't understand this. And it's okay, because we are programmed not to understand this. We are programmed from birth, literally from birth, to go through a certain corpocracy, I call it, all the way through until we are programmed through MK Ultra to this point in adulthood to believe everything we hear. And we virtually live in a matrix. Not, I don't mean in the digital sense, but that's really where we are right now. So my goal is I try to bring people from that reality into what's really going on, but there's also a positive outcome also.
What's the positive outcome?
Yeah, I believe God has already won, in my opinion. And I believe we, the people, just need to reap the harvest. And what that means, if I can translate that, is we just still need to do some more work, because the reality is there's way too many that are asleep still and are not awake to what's going on. And why do we need to be awake to what's going on?
Mm-hmm. And explain what you mean by sleep too.
Yeah, well, it's so funny. It's because my wife classifies it. She says there's asleep, there's the drowsy, and then there's awake. So the asleep would be people that turn on the regular news media
Okay.
all channels, including Fox. I know I'll offend some people, but including Fox and
True.
CNN, and they think they're watching the truth. They think that Hollywood is telling them the truth. They think these large corporations are telling the truth. They think we're actually operating under the Constitution still, and we're not. We are in the United States. We are a socialist republic right now. That's what we are.
Yeah.
And I could prove it right away to anybody that wants to ask me those questions, but we absolutely are. So we have to get people from sleeping to drowsy. And what that means is they're at least willing to look into things and see what's going on. Now, I would admit that actively some people want to stay asleep because they don't want to know. They literally want to live their life, whether gas prices are $10 a gallon or not. They don't want to know. It's like, don't tell me, because the fear of knowing is harder. And what I mean by that is, if anybody's been in what we call the truther community or the patriot community for even, let's say, even the last 2 years, it's been very, very painful for us because we know exactly what's going on in the background, where people that are still asleep, it's not as painful for. So we just want it to be over, and people asleep, we're like, what are you talking about? Right? Because they're just living their normal lives the way that the elite want them to live their lives, because it doesn't affect them until they're aware of what's really going on.
I think it's awesome, though, from at least the last 2 years, that God is waking up so many people. It might not be everybody, but for people to even talk about any of this in public is amazing. I think it's just such a gift.
Yeah.
I know we'd like a lot more people to be aware, but there are still people, like even people in our old neighborhood. I was just talking to them. They had no idea of the simplest things going on, because they're small, a younger family. They're busy. They don't have time to look into what's going on, and they didn't even know about the border. So
it's crazy. Well, because they're not told about the border properly. I mean, they a lot of places I still know, they don't even know that their kids are being taught sex education, which is incorrect sex education, by the way. They're taught that to kids as young as 6 years old. We've just talked to parents recently, and we said, did you know this is going on in your school? And oh, you're crazy, that's not going on in my school. Research it. They research, they're like, oh my Lord, I can't believe they're teaching my grandchildren that. I'm like, yep, that's what's going on. People just don't know.
Well, they're grooming them, because they
100%.
want the next generation to be obedient. That's why, in New York, you have to have 2-year-olds wear a stupid mask. It has nothing to do with the COVID. It has everything to do with, they want to train them to be obedient, and the mask, they can't connect and read faces. And you have to be able to read faces to protect yourself. I mean, it's growing up development that they need so badly. And to have that taken away is screwing them up so bad. People have no idea.
They don't understand that what the true agenda is. So great example. I was happy to see, I just read a report today from, I wrote it down. It's called the UKHSA, which is in the United Kingdom. It's Health Services Association, I believe it's called. Anyways, it's their back surveillance report. So what's very interesting on that is they have now determined you're 5 times more likely to get COVID if you're vaccinated.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
But that was their agenda from the beginning. Now, I was screaming that 2 years ago, but nobody would listen to me. The good news now is people are coming to me and going, hey, that stuff that you were talking about a couple of years ago, and I kind of blew you off. It all seems to be coming true right now. Can you explain? So what you mentioned earlier is there's a lot more people waking up, which I think is extremely positive, because when we're awake, we're not going to go back. It's the old saying is, once you're awake, you're always awake.
Right. We'll never go back. It's just that we got to do something right now. So what do you think about the border? Like, what do you think the purpose is for this? I mean, we can guess, they want to, have voters, but it seems like it's almost a takeover, like purposely planned. What are your thoughts? I mean, it's getting so insane.
Okay. So if anybody understands, okay, so there's a gentleman named Saul Alinsky who is a known Marxist and a mentor of of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and some other people like that, right? And I believe it was him, and I believe it was John Podesta, but at least Saul Alinsky said that never let a crisis go to waste. So what happens is they not only don't let a crisis go to waste, so they create crises, right, in order to forward their agenda. So a lot of times it's, people understand Freemasonry, there's something called the hidden hand trick. And that means whatever is going on the left, in the left hand, it's the right that you really should be paying attention to, but they want you to focus on one. So the border is serious because but it's a multifaceted issue. Number one, it's how they can get free votes for sure, right? The other, and it's not just a Democrat thing, and I'll explain that in a second. The other reason to have an open border is because it's a disruption to society. They want the disruption to society. So they always pretend and they use groups. And when I say they, I'm talking about the Marxist globalists, right? They pretend and they use groups, and through what we call the color revolution, in order to forward their agenda. They don't care. So they will, here's the type of things that you'll hear is those poor immigrants have no place to go. They're being persecuted in their own homeland and killed. We need to open our doors for them, right? That's what they say. They say the LGBT community is always attacked, right? So we need to bring transgenderism and everything else into the forefront. We need to put male athletes into female sports, although isn't that agenda always supposed to be supporting women? So that's counterintuitive right there. Then they always say we want to support the Black community and the Hispanic community, but what they do is they take racist actions by demeaning the Black community by saying you're less than, you can't survive without our help, which is extremely racist. Right. So everything that they do is literally opposite from what their words are. But what they're doing is, because we've been so brainwashed and propagandized for so long, they pull on our heartstrings instead of our mind now. So what they do is they say, okay, this is how we get them. So of course we don't want people dying in Mexico or Guatemala or Honduras. We don't want them dying. So of course, somehow, how can we help? Of course, we don't want the LGBT community to be demonized or Blacks or Hispanics to be suppressed or women to get less pay. Of course, we don't want any of that. So they put all their agenda. Of course, we don't want the world to overheat and die off, right? Through global warming. We don't want any of that. So now they emotionalize everything. What we need to know, though, is what they tell you is a hidden hand trick, because they tell you this is what they're really concerned about, right? They don't give a darn about it. Look, if they were concerned about racism, let's just be honest, right? Why would they put a gentleman in office named Joe Biden, who actually held up the hand to a ex-KKK member, racist, Robert Byrd in a parade, and then did his eulogy when he died? It doesn't even make sense.
True.
I mean, this is the games they play all the time, right? They knew all about Hunter Biden, and they suppressed it because they don't care about we the people. The game is they do. So they pull on our heartstrings, and it's constantly everything they say, you'll notice, is they talk about feelings, right? Because they want you to feel better while they're screwing you from the backside. That's the reality of things.
That is true.
Go ahead. Sorry. Well, it's not a Democrat or Republican issue, by the way. In fact, that's a construct I really want to wake people up. The Democrats and Republicans are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, they work together.
100%.
I've seen Kevin McCarthy give a hand sign that is part of the Illuminati. That's exactly I've seen him do it twice. Yep. On television. So he's no good guy. Or Lindsey Graham. They all, I think those are the worst for me. is the guys that go out and say, oh, I'm a good guy, and you think they're a good guy. I'd rather just know you're a little snake and you act like the snake and you say you're a snake. I have more
Right.
respect for you because you're saying what you are.
Well, I posted on Telegram and I said, what's worse, the enemy that's in your face, right? Or the enemy that stabs you, the friend that stabs you in your back. The friend that stabs you in the back is by far a scarier enemy. If
Yeah.
I want to face my enemies, I don't want them behind me circumventing everything I'm doing. So let's use two examples. And you mentioned one. Lindsey Graham would be the perfect example. Lindsey Graham is the ultimate gaslighter. So
Yeah.
when there's an issue that he thinks resonates with the Republican base, he screams at the top of his lungs that he's going to fix it, and then literally takes zero. And if you don't believe me, historically, go through his agenda for the last 20 years, literally signs no documents and no bills to forward what he says he's going to pioneer himself. So he gaslights you and says, this is the absolute worst. I'm so sorry we're going through this. We're going to fix it. I'm going to be the forefront of this. He gets exposure on all the news media and all the conservative sites. They're like, yeah, Lindsey, you're the best. But then if you watch, he literally, and this is a literally, takes zero steps to fix it. Never does it because it's all about gaslighting. So, but here's one of the worst ever, in my opinion, and this will offend a lot of people, but I hope you're going to wake up to this. There's a gentleman named Dan Crenshaw with the eye patch. Okay.
Okay.
He comes out, Mr. Crenshaw, with his eye patch, talking about his wonderful background as a Navy SEAL and so on and so forth. And, you know, of course, he got his eye taken out and that was serious. And he gets all this love. And then he tells you all the things that you need to hear, everything that you need to hear from A to Z, builds an extremely fast and huge following. Everybody loves the Dan Crenshaw of the world. Well, he barely any of his Navy SEALs even back up what he's saying. That should be a red flag right there, because they usually always support each other and they're not coming out in force for Dan Crenshaw. That's a huge red flag. But the biggest red flag is anybody with two brain cells to run together. And it doesn't matter if you're liberal or Republican, they know the election was stolen. They know this. But when it was brought up at a news conference, Dan Crenshaw made a point to scream at a reporter and tell him that it wasn't stolen. And that's not what we're going to talk about today. It was a fair election. Okay. So what Dan Crenshaw is he's controlled opposition. And I can tell you the Republican Party is filled with controlled opposition. And these are people that you think are on your side, and they bring you up to a point and then they shatter your dreams. Now, I can give you the most clinical description of controlled opposition, and I hope not to offend every viewer that you have, but if Fox News is controlled opposition, if you've ever seen it, and I'm going to give you the perfect example. So let me explain real quick, because I study controlled op all the time. So just to give you a base of what controlled opposition is. So that would be somebody that says all the right things, and I'm going to equate it to marketing, is they grab market share. And this is why I use Fox News as a perfect example, because when Fox News came on the scene, they were very, very small. Then they ended up grabbing market share. And what happened is CNN's following dropped dramatically. MSNBC's following dropped dramatically. Local news following dropped dramatically. Where did they go? They went to Fox News. And Fox News got, I believe, like 3 times larger than the closest when it came to their viewership, 3 times larger than the closest network after that, right? So what they've done is they've grabbed market share. They grab as much as they can to tell you everything they can. And then when the election came on 2020, who was the first news organization to announce the most scandalous thing? And they said, Arizona goes to Joe Biden. And then they fought on air about it to proclaim their position. That was all set up. I hate to tell anybody, that was predetermined that was going to happen. That's controlled opposition. So they bring you in. So what they do is the goal is they give you about 80 to 90% of what you want to hear, right? But they keep you going in a direction and they contain you. Why would they want to contain you? Why would they want to have 5 to 10 million viewers? Why would, or more at any one given time? Why would they want to continue? Because if you think you're looking at a reasonable and a reputable source, you don't go someplace else to look for more information. And I had to be honest, my go-to for a long time was Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you would go to that. So what it does is it prevents you from looking outside. So it's very, very smart on what they do. Now, I believe things are changing. And I think there's a couple of people on Fox News that are legit now. And I actually think there's some on CNN and MSNBC and a lot of local media, I believe, have been infiltrated by the good guys. And that's one reason why I think it's very obvious that we're winning now.
Well, I hope you're right. I'd still rather listen to independent journalists because I still don't trust them, because I see so plainly they're still doing that crap. Like, they're still kind of trying to hide stuff about Ukraine and Russia. And most people are all on board, just like you said, with the emotional Russia. Everything's, oh, yes, that's so horrible. And it is horrible. But I know for my own self, if every cabal member comes out in public and says we have to protect Ukraine, that tells me right there that they are trying to hide their own crap. Yeah. And there's something huge there. So I don't think we can believe anything they're saying. What do you think?
Well, I'll give you an example. So there's 3 people that we barely have heard from in the last couple of years, right? One is Hillary Clinton, one is George Soros, and one is that crazy witch, Marina Abramovich, right? Within 24 hours of Russia going into Ukraine, all 3 of them independently produced a video in support of Ukraine.
That's your first warning.
Yeah. So that was, within 24 hours, I'm like, wow. And they are pleading for us to get involved in Ukraine from a military standpoint. If we can back up, if anybody doesn't understand, George Soros is a master globalist financier of the whole globalist agenda. He literally pays for candidates to take down your city governments from within inside. And it's fully documented. This is what that guy does, right?
Yeah.
And he's a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton. If anybody doesn't understand who Hillary Clinton is by this time, they're double asleep. And then Marina Abramovich, a lot of people don't understand this. She's called a spirit cooker, and she's a proclaimed pretty much Satanist witch, right? And she uses blood and semen and everything to create art. And guess who one of her major supporters are? Hillary Clinton, the Podestas, the whole cabal,
the whole game.
They're part of this whole Satanist agenda, and normies are like, oh, that's just crazy. Well, I'm sorry. 4 years ago, I had a conversation with somebody that worked at Disney, and I said, that place is chock full of pedophiles. It's set up for pedophilia. I can show you 50 images how they're grooming our children right now. They said, I'm absolutely crazy. Well, right now, what's actually hitting some of the mainstream media, right, is that it seems like Disney's actually grooming kids for pedophilia. Go figure. There was a huge demonstration in front of Disneyland of parents that are very upset. They're trying to shut down Disneyland. Guys, this stuff is real. So we can put our head in the sand.
You can go look at the movies, like just go back and look at all of them. I mean, I've known for years that they did it. I mean, they put the stuff in every movie, if it's an image of a penis or image of whatever, it's always, you can find something. So of course, they're all just one huge gang. That's what people don't understand. They all know each other. They all work together. They all, this is all about, I said 2 years ago, and people got all over me. I said, they're coming after your kids. They are coming after your kids. This is all about the kids. They want the kids in every single way they can get them.
So if I tell somebody that, what if I told you, and it's just going to hurt some people, I get it. My kids used to go to Disneyland too. But if I tell you that, what if Disney was specifically set up to program your children to think the way they want you to think all the way from the beginning? People would say, you're absolutely crazy. I said, Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that badge of honor right there. So I'm crazy. I'm a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist. I can tell you how that phrase got coined. But anyways, so if you look at one of the original videos that Disney put out, Mickey Mouse, I think it was the 50s, was on a conveyor belt processing Swiss cheese. He was making holes in the Swiss cheese with his penis.
Oh, wow.
And that's back then.
That was in 1953.
I believe so. That was
Wow.
way back then. So that tells you their agenda started back then. Now, if you follow historically, you're going to see how the grooming is constant.
Yeah.
Constant. Now the grooming in Disney is all about transgenderism, right? Now, so when I talk about transgenders, I got to tell you, let's just say in general, in the patriot community, we don't give a damn. I don't care if you're transgender or lesbian or gay. None of it matters.
Right.
Live your life. I support you. We love you. That's fantastic, right? But that's not the agenda of the globalist Marxists, right? What they want to tell you is that people like me are absolutely against you. We don't want you to live your life. Therefore, we need to manufacture and physically switch the way everything is. Why do they do that? Because they need that division in order to forward their agenda, right? It's disgusting. The reality is, if most patriots that you talk to, they're like, I don't live your life.
Everybody doesn't care. Nobody
Yeah.
cares anymore. Nobody
That's your
cares what
deal.
color you are. Nobody cares what gender, whatever you want to believe. It's like, get over it. Go live your life. Because I know this is so rude, but this is exactly what I thought yesterday. I said, if I heard one more person say racist, you're a racist, the first thought I'm going to say is you're a complete idiot. You have no way to back up anything you're saying. Therefore, I will not listen to you anymore. Because if that's just a cop out, it is. They use that as a line to cop out on everything.
It is exactly right. I've seen, it's so funny, as I've seen, there's a lot of Black conservatives that I follow, right? And not all of them had their faces out there. And it's so funny because I've watched them put things out on Twitter and other stuff like that. And they're immediately called a racist. I started laughing. And then within days, they'll usually come out as for fun with a picture. They say, here I am, I'm the racist, right? It's beautiful because it's so stupid. We're creating a problem. And yet, is there racism? Of course there's racism.
But when you talk to everybody, nobody feels that way.
No, I know. Exactly.
That's the problem.
So there may be pockets of that craziness. I hate to say it, but I got banned. My first ban on Twitter was when I literally proved that the Democratic Party was racist. Like, I laid out agendas historically that they've signed on to. And the next thing you know, I was banned on Twitter. Oh, I'm sorry, because you can't tell the truth. I didn't say any bad words. I didn't say anything. All I literally did is showed in this state, they voted for this. In this state, they did this. In this state, they did. Boom, 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 boom. And then I was off of Twitter immediately.
They threw me off Twitter, and I didn't even have a big following. I didn't even hardly say anything. The only time I said some stuff about Biden, during the election, they threw me off. I was like, why? That was insane. But anyway, I guess I said something.
You were over the target, I guarantee it.
So, okay. So I wanted to ask you one more question. Do you have anything to share with people about the food and energy shortages? Because we know they planned it, but what should we do about it?
Well, here's my question. First, I would say, are there energy shortages?
Well, they want to present it as if there is.
Exactly.
I don't think there is, but
exactly. There's no energy shortage whatsoever. We have stockpiles of crude oil that you cannot possibly believe. Now, are there manufactured energy issues? Yeah, I can tell you that that in Los Angeles alone, when I say we, the people, have been begging them to fix their infrastructure for years. They've been diverting money that was supposed to go through the infrastructure. Even the Department of Water Power was given extra money and it didn't go to their infrastructure. And then they have these scheduled blackouts and so on and so forth. So again, they create a problem where a problem doesn't exist, because when they create the problem, then they have the solution, and that solution is never anything that helps us. It's just another way to grab more of our sovereignty. That's the whole goal between this whole agenda, is grab more of our sovereignty, grab less of our freedoms. I mean, it's so for you Republicans that love George W. Bush, he was one of the worst. It absolutely was doing everything to grab your freedoms from you, use every possible excuse. I think created one big one, which your audience may not be ready for, but it's a big deal. On these globalists work together. It's no accident that your favorite George W. Bush and your favorite Bill Clinton are best friends right now. That's not an accident that happens. This is a pre-construct before all of this. There's even an Obama connection with those two guys that people would be blown away if they found out.
Well, people need to realize these people, it's a small group. So they all know each other. They're all connected. It's not like, this whole huge world, not everybody knows everybody. They know each other. They've known each other for years, and they've been to every horrible thing together and enjoyed every bit of it. So they're all part of the horrible stuff.
I just realized I must definitely be a racist because I just looked at my background. That's Martin Luther King Jr., by the way, who I think did some amazing things. And I've read a lot of books about him, and I have one that I kind of wanted to write about him also. So I know there's some challenges maybe with his personal life, but I think he was on the right page. And, therefore I think he was probably killed by the CIA, to be honest with you.
Yeah. They seem to kill a lot of people. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
They do.
All right. So we're going to end with you telling us what kind of films you make, because you're a filmmaker. So it would be interesting. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I'm kind of all over the map, but it's all about disclosures of some sort. So one of my most famous films was Watch the Water. It's Watch the Water. It's deuterium, Trump, and Q. And to say deuterium, what's deuterium? Deuterium is something that is found, unfortunately, that's attached. It's an isotope that's attached to the hydrogen molecule in our water, which actually is such a high level in all our water across the planet that it actually reduces our lifespan by a lot. Trying to figure out where this came from originally. I have some theories about it, but that video alone has been widely watched. I think we're up to we know it's been stolen 32 times and put on other platforms. Not even upset about it. That means that there must be some good information there. I've had some people call me and say, whoa, you're in an area that you may not want to be talking about. I've had some other people call me and said, that was amazing. That's just one. I've done films. I did one little 5-minute film about, there's a saying in the Bible, I think it's Matthew 5:5, that says the meek shall inherit the earth. The saying is not manipulated, but I believe the word meek has been manipulated by the cabal in order to show that it's the weak, it's the docile, it's the ones that don't speak up are the ones that are going to inherit the earth, because what they're trying to do is condition us, right? But meek actually has a very strong meaning. In fact, the original meaning came from the strong horse back in Turkish and in Greece and so on and so forth. So meek is really a person that may be strong and waiting, but they are very, very hard working to get the job done when they need to get it done. But that you wouldn't know that by the definitions you hear. And to be proof of the way they manipulate definitions, and they know everything's going to happen ahead of time. If I keep saying they, I'm talking about the globalists, right? So whether you think COVID is real, not, whether you think it's a 5G thing, or it's a real virus, or it was planned or not planned, It doesn't matter. Whatever you think, it's fine. That's your truth. But here's what I want to mention, and this is fact. Why in 2009 was the definition of pandemic universally changed in our dictionaries? Why would they do that? Why would it go from literally people dying on the streets and nobody can be saved and full isolation? They weren't even making it to hospitals, to a very vague definition of a virus that can be spread and fairly lethal. And it's more about the testing results than the death rate. So look at a pre-definition of pre-2009 of a definition of pandemic to the current definition now, 2022, and you're going to find they're extremely different. And that's not an accident. All this stuff is planned out. This is the propaganda that we deal with globally on a daily basis in almost every venue. You can see it on the little writing sometimes on the back of a bottle of supplements. Could be very manipulative if you know how to read it. It's pretty scary.
Yeah, because Google's changed a lot of things too. Like you can't find a lot of information.
Nope.
WikiLeaks has changed a lot of things.
Yeah. It's so like if you're talking about Wikipedia, that's a very interesting. So Wikipedia is very manipulative. So let me make a Wikipedia, YouTube, Google connection right here. So a lot of people don't know Google is owned by a company owned ABC, which actually owns YouTube also. Okay. So it's very interesting. If I mention New World Order on my videos, right, on YouTube, by the way, my account was the second I hit 1 million views that day, they took my account offline. So whatever. So now I'm rebuilding under my own name. I don't even have it under my moniker anymore. But here's what's interesting is on YouTube, if I were to say the words New World Order, right, they would flag it and they would show a reference to what? Wikipedia. And Wikipedia says it is an unproven conspiracy theory, right? Here's what's ironic. Joe Biden, your president, said the words New World Order, and they flagged him as a conspiracy theorist. It's just madness. It's ludicrous, right? The president of the United States is saying, I'm going to have a new world order. We want to have a new world order. And what he said is a conspiracy theory. That's how ludicrous it is, because it's mind manipulation. It's mind wars. It has been for a long, long time. I mean, if you go back to the Tavistock Institute, they've been doing this since World War I and before. It's all changing our perspective. So we only believe what they want you to believe, not what the truth is.
And that's been our whole life since we've been born.
Yep, way before that.
So the good news, or do you have some good news? Are we going to take back our world?
We are, and I'm seeing it right now. So let's use Ukraine as an example. So a lot of people don't understand that Ukraine is a deep state operation. They've been pouring everything into Ukraine for a long time. There are biolabs there. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there that's really, really dirty in Ukraine. Before Russia walked into Ukraine with their tanks, Ukraine was literally considered the most corrupt country right next to North Korea.
So the child trafficking, the biolabs that we have over there.
Yeah.
And money laundering.
Money laundering for sure. And they're filled with neo-Nazis, just jam-packed with neo-Nazis. Ironically, there was a UN agenda to denounce the neo-Nazi agenda going on in Ukraine a couple of years ago, and only 2 countries did not agree with denouncing them. That was the United States and that was Ukraine.
Yeah.
Go figure, right?
Well, with Biden and Kerry and Pelosi and what's the other one? Kerry?
Well, and Romney.
Their sons. Yeah, they have their sons over there.
Yep, working on the executive boards of oil companies and gas companies. It's crazy. So the deep state operation is right there. So whether you agree or disagree with Putin, I can tell you that absolutely, and I've seen a lot of reports and film of this, there's something called the Azov Battalion, which are funded, here's ironically, they're funded in Ukraine by the Khazarian mafia, which are Jews, but they're neo-Nazis. Go figure how that works. Okay. I don't know. But that's actually a fact. That's what's going on. So the Azov Battalion and the Ashkenazi Jews are funding the Azov Battalion, which are neo-Nazis, proclaimed neo-Nazis, like wearing swastikas and everything like that. So
what does that mean if they're Nazis? Like, what does that mean that they're doing?
They claim that they're against any person of color and against the Jews. That's what they claim. That's what a neo-Nazi claims they are. It's very warped over there, because how could they be funded by Jews if that's what the thing is? It's a very warped situation. But this is the inversion type of thing that the Freemasonic Kabbalists do. It's really crazy. So what happens is over there's multiple reports of citizens wanting to leave certain sections of Ukraine because of the war entering in their territory and being shot and suppressed by their own Ukrainian Azov Battalion, which is crazy. Many reports of them taking, when Russia's giving them food, boxes of food, like has Russia's information on it, they're taking that food from them. They don't want this, so they need the chaos within inside of it, and then they try to reposition it. I just saw a Ukrainian soldier, I believe he was an Azov, I don't know, not an Azov Battalion, but I think he was a Ukrainian soldier, a video of him planning a toxic substance in a school ground, and then they recorded it as the Russians were planning toxic substance in the school ground. So there's a lot of propaganda going on there that people don't know about. So how do I get to the good part to answer your question? So there's a big, huge deep state takedown there. Most of these globalists are now fleeing to Switzerland. That's a whole show that we could go separately, because everybody thinks Switzerland's an absolute neutral country. Well, they are the number one producer of bombs for war. That's not a neutral country. And I can go way deep into Switzerland. I believe all roads lead back to Switzerland. That's why they pretend to be neutral, because that's where the deep state hides. So these globalists are now flooding and fleeing to Switzerland right now. So what's going on is you're seeing with inside the media, there's starting to be a slow drip of real information coming out through the mainstream media. I believe CNN, MSNBC, the New York Post, the Times, Fox News are starting to be infiltrated by good guys. I believe there is a takeover there. And unfortunately, the people that are going to wake up are still not going to be listening to Laura or Lewis. They're going to have to hear it through a mainstream media source. It's sad, but they've been propagandized for so many years. That's where they think the truth comes through. So I'm heartened to see that almost all the mainstream media is now talking about the Biden laptop. So the Hunter Biden laptop.
But they cover up a lot of the information though.
They do, but they're still getting it out there. And sometimes it's okay. So great example is there was, I forgot what his name was, but it was on Fox News. Oh, Howard Kurtz was Howard Kurtz? Yeah, I believe it was. Did a report of Virginia Thomas, which is the wife of Clarence Thomas. And he had a text message that went from him to, I could be wrong, but I believe it was Mike McCarthy. And the text message was literally saying how there's the deep state's being taken down. They have ships in Gitmo. They're going to have to go through trials and so on and so forth. Whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter. Howard Kurtz, even though he put it out like she's a whack job, he put it out there. So what is that going to do is that gets people to go, huh, what's that all about? And then maybe they start digging.
Yeah.
And the reason why I know it's working, and I can only use this anecdotally, is because I can tell you people come to my wife and I often, almost daily, definitely weekly, and say, remember what you were saying a couple of years ago? These are some people that have shut us off completely, like they don't want to talk to us anymore, right? They're coming back and saying, hey, so what's really going on in the world, right? Over and over and over. Now, I can tell you a year ago, nobody would. Everybody just considered it whack jobs. Now they're coming back. So with all the exposure of this COVID pandemic, with the exposure that's starting to leak out about Ukraine, the Hunter Biden laptop, the grooming agenda with Disney, with
even mainstream media, like people are just really realizing how much of a liar they are.
They are. That, well, they're losing audience shares like crazy, and it's people like you, me, and our buddies are getting the audience. We're like, great, you know, people are coming over to us. They're like, well, we can't get the truth from them. We have to go search for it.
Yeah, like I will absolutely go get independent journalist truth, because you guys have nothing to really lie for. There's no purpose in lying. At least that's my opinion.
I don't. Why?
Most of you aren't getting paid a salary by the cabal.
No, it's different, because here's the thing: they lie and they get paid for it, right? I tell the truth, and the FBI shows up at my house, which has happened.
That's so terrible.
Right. So I'm telling the truth, and I'm a you know, a domestic terrorist. So
that's what we've become, and that's really horrible. I hope we change it, because I really feel like if we don't take down these institutions and everyone that's in government currently, then we will not have a country left. And that means the FBI, the CIA, the NIH, the CDC, the FDA, you know, and pretty much every single person in government, not everyone, but pretty much every single one are owned by the globalists.
Just about. That's how they get there. That's how they vote themselves a new 20% raise. You know, it's all like that. Now, what I want people to be very aware of, and not be, because I agree with you that we need to take down, pretty much reconstruct our government.
That's what I mean.
And make it like at maybe 1/10 the size of it is now. You know what I mean? We have to do that, and we have to take down all these globalists, and we have to take the mainstream media down, so on and so forth. But there's one big thing that everybody should be really aware of.
Okay.
The people that do the dirty work for these people are the corporations. So this is because we live inside a corpocracy. So the reason why most people can say we're not socialist and we still live under the Constitution, by the way, which Constitution? I have a book here that I just got delivered, which I'm going to read, called The Original Constitution, because I think there's something going on there, but that's a whole nother story. But we have to realize it's the corpocracy that is doing the dirty work. And let me explain that really quick, and then I know you will let us go. But our governments put out what they call mandates. Okay, mandates have zero teeth. Mandates are not law. You do not have to oblige by a mandate. What happens is those are dog whistles. So if Biden says we need a mask mandate or a vax mandate, right? Or some type of transgender mandate, right? What happens is that's a dog whistle to his allies in the states and definitely his corporations. Now, most states don't need to actually write laws to make things happen, because when they puppet out the same mandate, large corporations now take that ball and they enforce it. So they can literally say, well, we never wrote a law. So you have to understand, the people that are watching here, that nothing's being voted on anymore. It doesn't need to be voted on, right? So you put these people in office, and that's debatable because we know the elections are stolen. But let's say they were legitimately elected in office, which they're not, but let's assume they were legitimately elected in office. So they put out a mandate that they don't even have to write into law, because their cronies that run these huge corporations implement their mandates for them. So now that's why you couldn't walk into a place without a mask. It had zero to do with the law. It had everything to do with the corporations dictating that within inside their businesses. And then everybody followed suit. And then you would get some unconstitutional sheriffs that would try to force it. Well, in some countries that was enforceable, but in the United States, by the time most of those cases got to court, they were dropped, settled, or never had anything. But they did have the image of that sheriff coming out and dragging somebody out of a business, right? So these are corpocracies that are running everything. And what people need to realize is we have to eliminate that. Your corporations are running you right now, from your food to your medicine to businesses, everything you can imagine. The corporations are running right now because of the mandates of globalists. Now, if I could suggest where people want to put their focus, if they really want to help win this, right, is locally. Get your butts into your school boards and your city council meetings, and you can make a difference. You absolutely can make a difference. I've seen it firsthand. Now, if you really, really want to hold somebody accountable, the most powerful person in the whole country is not the president, the vice president. It's not a senator. It's not congressman, and it's not your governors. It's your local sheriff, because the local sheriffs have to have a constitutional obligation on how they're supposed to behave. You can hold your local sheriff accountable at that level. You can get a lot done, because they just will not enforce these mandates or a lot of this craziness that comes around. So I think we're in fun times and scary times at the same time. So I do understand the gas prices and everything else, but unfortunately, I believe that we need to go through this pain to wake enough people up so we can take back our sovereignty and live in love and peace. And yes, love and peace. We do not need war, guys. War is a construct that people have tied to Republicans, and they've tied it to this. It's BS. BS. We do not need war. It's not necessary. We can all live in peace. And I think we're going to one day look back and go, we are literally in the most extraordinary biblical times in history.
I think so too. I think there's scary and there's good, but it is first time in history of a lot of things. So what side do you want to be on is what I say.
Yeah, pick a side. I agree.
Yeah, and you're on the good side. So thank you for doing this interview and sharing your views and your experience. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate the invite. You're amazing too. And I know we'll be working on stuff together in the future.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.